was raised as a conservative. If you look at the things my parents taught me, the values we had, they were church-going people, they were pro-family, pro-marriage, they believed in hard work and personal responsibility. They didn't like it when people took advantage of the system. And my grandfather owned several guns, and he'd point one of them at you if you tried to take it away from him. So you strip away race, you strip away all these other things. This was a conservative family. Yet here they had on the mantle a picture of Jesus Christ, John F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. And they were Democrats. So I leave home, I go to college, I start getting involved in politics in college, and I start to look at the party platforms and what they say they stand for. And the first thing I noted was that nothing I was taught lined up with the Democratic Party platform. So immediately I'm confused. So I go home during one of my trips and I say, Mom, Dad, explain this to me. Why is it that we are Democrats? Because they don't believe in anything we stand for. The answer I got was, Republicans hate black people. I said, really? Now, I want you to understand the context in which they gave that answer, because my father and mother were both born in the South, Louisiana and Georgia, and they were raised in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And the people who were perpetrating the greatest harm on them during all that time were Democrats.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Condoleezza Rice says the only reason her father was able to register to vote was because the Republican Party allowed him to register, not the Democrats. And believe it or not, even she was a Democrat until 1982. So I decided that maybe there was something there that I was missing, and I wanted to find out for myself. So I joined the college Republicans at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. Didn't tell my parents yet. And 3 months after joining, I went to my first state convention, and I got elected in a landslide. So here I am, a black college student, and I'm the vice president of the College Republicans of the state of Texas. And I thought to myself, if Republicans hate black people, they've got a funny way of showing it. So I went home, and I said, Mom, Dad, I'm registering to vote as a Republican. You would think that I had renounced Jesus Christ, that I had joined a satanic cult. Now, I have to give my parents a lot of credit. I've heard stories from other black conservatives where they were literally disowned. My parents have never done that. They say they love me, they think the world of me, they just don't understand. Baby, why are you a Republican? And my answer is always the same. Mom, Dad, you raised me that way. One of the great dichotomies that, as a person who is very active in the Tea Party, I was master of ceremonies for the very first Tea Party in Maryland. And I've either spoken at tea parties, I've participated, I've been an exhibitor at tea parties, and the press likes to harp on the fact, where are all the black people? Well, you know something? According to them, people like me are supposed to fear people like you. But when Eric Holder talks about my people, these are my people. All right? He may believe in selective justice, that somehow justice only applies with certain skin color, but when I think of my people, I think of people who believe in equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. I think of people who believe in individual liberty and individual responsibility, which means you have the freedom to succeed, but you also have the freedom to fail, so that you learn from adversity and you pick yourself up and you start over. And it's been my experience that when you try, even if you fall, not only will people cheer for you to get back up, most Americans will help you up so you can continue on. That's been my experience. That's been my experience as a veteran. It's been my experience in the private sector. I've been in the nonprofit sector. I have not come across any area of life in America where if you play by the rules, people won't be there to cheer you on and help you up.
Yep.
I recently went to the Tea Party Patriots Summit out in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was in the author's corner. And a room much like this in terms of demographics. People are walking by and I'm smiling and waving and selling my book. And somebody stops me and they ask me, can you tell us, why aren't there more black people here? I said, well, it's not because they're not welcome. It's been my experience that every time I go to a tea party, I'm very much at home. These are the people I run into at the grocery store, the people I sit next to in church. These are the folks that I see when I'm picking up my son from school. These are everyday Americans who have been working hard all their lives. And a story I have from that very first tea party I did is one that I think reflects across every experience I've ever had. A 90-year-old woman in a wheelchair came out, and we had 2 weeks' notice to set up this tea party. We had 540 people show up at Little Solomons, Maryland. And I went to thank her for coming, and she said something to me that stuck with me always. She said, I've never done anything like this before, but I'm afraid for my country, and I need to do something. How many people can relate to that statement? I have to go back to that question that I was asked at the Tea Party Patriots Summit, and that's why are there not more black people? And frankly, I've been really spending a lot of time and a lot of sleepless nights wondering about that. I spent a lot of time looking into black history in America. And for all of the people that want to emphasize the pain and the heartache and the struggle, and that's certainly there, there's some great stories of triumph. And if 485 years of struggle wasn't about liberty, then what was it about? Well, I came to a couple of conclusions. First of all, back in the day, you look at people like Frederick Douglass, a woman named Bridget Biddy Mason. Anybody ever heard of her? Because I'm going to tell you about her in a minute. You look at Harriet Tubman and others. These were people who actually bore the chains of slavery and the scars of beatings and all the things that were associated with that heinous crime against humanity. Yet, they were able to overcome that. I read these stories, and there are many more like this. And I say to myself, how much more can we do, any of us, regardless of race, today when the opportunities are so much greater? So, for me, I really have to try and understand why it is that people can't see it. And I've come to a couple of conclusions. First of all, I think indoctrination is the key. If you've spent your whole life being told that you can't succeed because society is inherently racist, that there is nothing that you can do to change that, and everything you see around you reflects that, then it's tough to overcome. But it's not impossible. Back in the 1900s, Booker T. Washington said there is a class of people who don't want the patient to get well. If their solutions were working for you, shouldn't you be better off than you are now? In 1965, 24% of black children were born out of wedlock. Today it's 72%. If you want to talk about racism, the condescension that says black people can't make it without them is the ultimate in racism as far as I'm concerned. I was really excited about this night, and it's not because I want you to buy my book. It's a very personal one. If America were an inherently racist society, then no black person would succeed, and too many millions have for that to be true. We've got to get past race. But we're all Americans. Yes, we are. And that's where I am. And that's where I live. And that's how I raise my children. And that's how I live my life. But they're not there yet. I try to start there by saying, your heritage is not what you've become. Let's look at the great men of black history and the great women of black history and look at what they've done. You can do it too. And you know why? Because everyone in America is given the opportunity. Look at people that have my skin tone, who come from the Caribbean, who come from Africa, and they don't have the history of black Americans here. They come here, they start businesses. African immigrants have higher levels of graduate education than even Japanese Americans. How many people would have known that? 49.8% of them go into business for themselves. When they're in Africa, they're entrepreneurs. They're working, they're scrapping, but they're not getting anywhere. They come here and that work ethic pays off.